Our final session is on the big challenge of the small arms sector. While we talk about the big stuff, the tanks, the fighter jets and warships, we frequently forget the small stuff, the modern assault rifles, weapon sights and machine guns that our soldiers on the ground so badly need. While India has a large capacity to manufacture small arms, the need for modern weapons has prompted the Indian Army to look abroad for its requirements. When will India become Atmanirbhar in small arms? Joining me to find out are Mr. Hari Mohan, former Chairman, Ordinance Factory Board, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Director General Infantry, and Mr. Vivek Krishnan, CEO, SSS Defence. Hello and welcome to this installment of the India Today Defence Conclave. Joining me on this panel today is a very distinguished group of speakers from all the stakeholders in the country relating to defence. I want the three of you to give us today an overview of the small arms sector in India as we move towards this huge path of indigenization and self-reliance and modernization. I want to start by calling on General Sanjay Kulkarni. General Kulkarni, welcome. Give us a perspective from the user's point of view on what you see the Indian small arms industry, what you need to live up to, what are the expectations from the Indian industry, and where you see our procurements headed over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Sandeep. At the very outset, I think I'm privileged because I know all of you very well. So that is something which is very nice, and we can all be very frank and honest, primarily because it affects the user. And as a user of a small arm, I can safely say, firstly, that we are very capable. As a nation, let's accept the very fact that we are a very, very capable nation of doing anything and everything. First. Second, why do I say, and why, even if you are capable, what is this capability meant for? We are one of the biggest users. So we have a huge market, which is our own. That's the defense forces, huge defense. We're the fourth largest defense force in the world. You can well imagine with such kind of a defense force, and a personal weapon would be a basic need for everybody, be it an army man, be it an air force, be it navy, be it coast guard, anybody and everybody to defend himself, he needs a personal weapon. So there is no denying the fact that small arm, whatever be its caliber, somebody may carry a pistol, somebody may carry a carbine, somebody might carry a LMG, somebody might carry an assault rifle, whatever be so. But a personal weapon for his own personal safety is a dire need, which is a must. Not just that, now we have huge paramilitary forces and the police force. So you can well imagine, even if you have about 10 lakhs of them, another 13 lakhs of this, another lakh with the rest of them, what a market. Imagine the market that we have in India of small arms. It's amazing. It's something that is unbelievable that anybody and everybody would love to have this kind of a market. If you have a market, what is it that you just said in your introduction? We are importing. Why are we going? What need? Where is the need to import a personal weapon? I find there's just no need. But still, what is it that now makes us at other crossroads that we really need to import a weapon? Primarily, what is it that the user wants? That is the most important thing. If we know what the user wants, everything else can fall in its place. User wants a weapon, a caliber that he chooses. Whichever caliber. If he chooses that caliber, what is it that he's looking for a weapon? He wants accuracy. He wants reliability. He wants compactness. He wants to ensure easy maintainability. He wants to make sure that the weapon is easy to carry. If that be so, and of course, over a period of time, he is looking at a plus. Now, what is that plus that he looks for? If he can put some night sights along with it so that he can fire day in, day out. So even if he has the open sights, he can also put fixing sights for what does he need that for? He needs a Picatinny rail along with it. Can he fire some rocket, not rocket, grenades along with it? There's some attachment for the grenades if you could fire upon. What else does he need? He wants a weapon with a range. He might have specified a range. It could be 500 meters, it could be 300 meters, it could be 200 meters. If he's looking for a sniper rifle, it could be another 2 kilometers or 1.5 kilometers, depending on the kind of role that he's doing and the kind of weapon that he looks at it. If that be so, where are we failing then? Why have of late, when from, I would say, we were supplying weapons right from Second World War till we have now, for the first time ever, imported weapons in 2020 or so, starting 2019 and 2020. And now what is this sudden transformation from where we were equipping our troops with our own indigenized weapon and we had to resort to importing a weapon? That is what is alarming. Where does the user feel so? And what I would now he finds if a weapon is not reliable. Now, when he talks of reliability, he's looking at certain times that it should be able to fire. He could have a magazine of 30 rounds. He could be having a magazine of 20 rounds. He could be having a magazine of 10 rounds. It doesn't really, as long as he can fire the kind of magazines that is entitled. If he's carrying 5 magazines with him, he should be able to fire. First shot, the moment he puts his finger onto the trigger, it should fire. And it should fire where he wants it to fire. And if it is not accurate, and if it just fires, it is of no use. If it is accurate, but if it doesn't hit the target or doesn't, the weapon is of no use. So therefore, ammunition also must be reliable. The weapon also must be reliable. It should be able to give to the user whatever task and role that is performing. He should feel happy and confident. That's the weapon that he had. The confidence is very, very important in any soldier, what he carries. If he is not very confident going in, now we found that over a period of time, we had a 7.62 mm SLR, before that a 303. After that, we transformed to an INSAS rifle. And after having so much, we found that roles changed a little bit in an asymmetric warfare and hybrid warfare. We found that we were into insurgency role, where the man wanted to fire to be able to kill the militant, whoever had fired at him. So now in an insurgency role, especially in India, how do you know that he's a militant? Only when he's fired on you. When you're fired upon, that you know that this chap is a militant. Otherwise, you're not firing on anybody. How would you know? You just don't fire at anybody. After all, human rights is a very important thing. We are a democracy. We don't just fire helter-skelter anyway. Only when you're fired upon, you fire. And when you are fired upon, that means as it is, you're at disadvantages because you have been fired upon. Now the second round is your round. You'll be fired upon and you must fire. And you must fire to be able to knock down that militant, whoever it be so. So we have moved from what we had earlier, a caliber which was killing, 7.16 to 51. We moved to a caliber which was 5.56 into 45, which was incapacitating. And again, we have gone back to a caliber which is, we wanted killing. That is 7.60 to 51. We are retaining 7.60 to 39 also. We are having 5.56 into 45 also. But the caliber, the assault rifle has again moved back to aim being to kill. If that be so, the most important thing I find is lethality, maintainability, accuracy, and to ensure that the weapon is easy to carry, easy to maintain. That's it. It's not asking for more. I'm not, the GSQR, we will not discuss what muzzle velocity it wants, what kind of ammunition it does it need to be fired upon, what is the length and what is the this thing and the bayonet, and we'll not discuss that. When I say a weapon, it can't be more than 3.5 kg to 4 kg if it's an assault rifle. It must be a light weapon because after all, as it is loaded up with so much, you give him a weapon which is about 5.5 and 6 kgs, it will be very difficult. Then he would rather go in for a LMG, a light machine gun, than an assault rifle. So we're just confining ourselves to certain, because it's a huge lot of weapons that would come into your personal weapon. If having said that, I find that yes, we are capable. We have, because I've been associated with the ordnance factories, and I can tell you the capability exists. That they are not able to do, well, we'll have first Mr. Harimohan to tell us as to what ails and what has gone wrong, whether is the user at fault, is it the manufacturer at fault, is it the DRDO or the ARD at fault, or is it the user who's very choosy, or is it, are we a little more complacent to be able to provide a weapon which is not meeting the user, this thing, or is it the ergonomically the weapon doesn't seem to look the way it should be looking, or we really not have the art of being able to compare ourselves with weapons of foreign origin. Because weapons of foreign origin, the moment it's placed on the table, you know that this weapon is of a foreign origin and this weapon is ours. Why should that be so? Is the metallurgy to be seen, or is it some modernization methods that we really need to relook, or is it the goalposts are changing so often that the manufacturer is not able to cope up with the user's fast mind, and the designer is not able to give the kind of weapon that the user is looking at in a short span of time, whatever be it so. Various factors that could come. Having said that, I would say just this much. User in India is extremely happy and proud if he carries a weapon which is made in India. No denying the fact. He has never carried a weapon which is other than made in India. Let's be honest about it. He's always carried. What really changed, transformed, was the AK-47. When AK-47 got introduced, maybe with the weaponry available freely with all state actors and non-state actors and everybody and anybody, that AK-47, that was seen as a weapon which is reliable, trustworthy, and can be fired at whatever time with no repairs, minimum spare parts, easy to carry, easy to fire, and that is what it was, and could carry single shots, bursts, whatever you wanted it, and it was a weapon which every soldier wanted. Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe the introduction or the coming in of AK-47 actually changed the mind of a soldier, and he thought, why not have a weapon which is lighter to carry like this, be able to fire at ease, and very small spare parts, easy to maintain and easy to carry. So that is where the whole thing goes. So user is not very fussy. User is very happy if you can get a weapon which, press the trigger, the shot should be fired.
Vivek, without much ado, I want to ask you this one question, that when will India see its Mausers, Heckler and Koch and AK-47 making companies?
Sandeep, the very essence of Atmanirbhar Bharat generally seems to be about buying an Indian weapon, right? Now, where I tend to differ in respect is the substance and the form of it, right? Atmanirbhar Bharat to me is not just purely about buying an Indian weapon. It is about future-proofing the army. It is about ensuring that we're not just kind of limiting our focus to what the army needs right away, but also making sure that for the next 50 years, they don't have to go anywhere else, right? If the US advances, 10 paces ahead, we are able to match that as well. And that is likely to happen because the US, or for that matter, China, are at the same time, as we speak, working on the next generation of weapons, right? So an area which was really not as well developed in terms of technology is suddenly started getting a lot of that particular traction. So future-proofing is one. The second one, of course, is to be able to continuously deliver in terms of new, new weapon systems which are very, very particular to the Indian environment. The fact is this, right? A Russian has a different environment. The Americans have a different environment. We have a mix of all of them, right? So to say that, fine, an Indian weapon, as long as it performs in Russia or performs well in the US, is going to be performing well in India, that's a misnomer. It doesn't work that way. So the complications of the Indian environment would mean that we kind of focus on that as well. Third is that in spirit, yes, this is very, very important. And mark my words, it is equally important that the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat ensures that what we're doing at this point in time is going to result in more and more of our scientists and engineers being proud about the products that come out of India and ensure that they manufacture in country, as against trying to put forward future views that we should be buying out of Russia or the US or the European countries, right? So now that I've given you where I kind of stand in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, my own judgment today is that we are easily about 20 years behind in terms of technology. The Americans have constantly evolved. The Europeans have constantly evolved. The working operating systems are one and the same. I mean, you have a DI operating system, you have a short stroke piston, and you possibly have the AK-47 based long stroke piston system. But where things have literally taken a massive change for the better is in terms of the internal workings, what materials you might use, the way in which ergonomics is given value. And that is the area where I think Indian industry is now trying to kind of evolve in, trying to make what you have as as a given even better. And my view is that we are very, very close to kind of getting there, but yet we will still continue to be a couple of steps behind them. The objective of Indian private industry over the course of the next few years is to change the goalpost. And I'm being very candid here. The idea is not to say, let the army come across and tell us what they want, right? That's how things used to happen 20 years back. And I hope General Kulkarni kind of agrees with me as well. The future should be about the private sector basically going across and saying, look, this is what we can give you. You tell me whether this can work in your circumstance, whether this will work in the environment that you actually want to fight in, right? Our objective would be to kind of give you the product, get you the training as far as the product is concerned. Your job as the forces would be to teach us the art of war. Tell us how this works. Give us an idea about how the soldier touch points actually get the weapon to be used. How does the weapon perform when rubber hits the road, right? So I actually believe that the future is going to be about co-development between the forces and private industry. You can also see that in the artillery space. I believe that the small arms space will actually have to see some programs of that variety. Now, so I told you as to where it is going. Now, remember one thing, right? For this to happen, you need skin in the game, right? Clearly, that's one word I will constantly emphasize. Skin in the game from the side of the forces, skin in the game from the side of the Indian manufacturers, skin in the game from the DRDO as well, right? And what do I mean by this? The basic argument is this. Till now, we've been looking at big bang acquisitions, right? So we need to buy 350,000 carbines, we need to buy 750,000 assault rifles. The numbers are never small. The numbers are never, manageable. They're all massive, big numbers. And what happens when you kind of think really long and big is that, yes, that's good ambition sort of have, but it takes away from the fact that your first priority is to have a good working weapon. As General Kulkarni said, it's a reliable weapon that can be manufactured in India, where the design rights are held in India, where tomorrow going forward, you do not have to depend upon any foreign country for spares. You don't have to depend upon any foreign source to continue production of the weapon in India. So if that is the objective, then I personally believe that the army needs to have skin in the game. What it needs to do is possibly mount what I call solicitations, right? Solicitations need not be for 500,000 weapons. They could be for bringing in a portfolio of, let's say, 100 to 1,000 weapons, quickly running through the testing process, the entire gamut of tests, environmental tests, drop tests, reliability testing, using protocols which are globally standard, right? And then trying to see if we can induct some of these weapons to ensure that the forces actually get to use some of these weapons in the real world. The point is that when you actually do that, you get solid feedback. There are bound to be weapon inadequacies which will come. And there are bound to be some very, very positives which need to get better in the next round. But in the course of this, what happens is that over the course of the next 4 to 5 years, we will actually have something as close as possible to a SIG or a Glock, right? If we kind of decide that we need to buy once and we're going to be buying for the next 20 years, in the course of the next 20 years, the systems would have been taken over. I mean, the doctrine of technology and war would have kind of taken over in entirely different directions while we're still looking at, let's say, a weapon which survived the past 50 years, right? Do I think that the AK-203, for instance, will see action by the Russians in the next 20 years? Most likely not, right? Do I think that we should have something which is as good or even better than the AK-15 or the AK-12s or the SIGs in India? Yes, absolutely yes. Okay, and one way to look at this is stop doing big bang, try to find a whole lot of smaller bangs, right? And that is where I think industry needs to kind of come work closely with the army and co-developments. And I can clearly see that positiveness happening at this point in time. It is definitely because of the fact that private sector is coming in here that we're seeing some of these actions happening. As far as private industry is concerned, skin in the game again. We should stop this whole idea that private sector should get a contract before it does its investment. Private sector owes its responsibility to the army to complete its R&D investments, to have factory and operations ready, to have the supply chain systems in place before they say, fine, army, give me a contract. To say that, fine, I will do the tougher job once the army gives me a contract is a little too far-fetched, right? It is the reason why companies and acquisitions fail in the first place, right? But skin in the game also means there is mutual trust, right? It can only happen when the army says, I'll take a little punch for you, you take a few punches for me.
I'm going to ask Mr. Hari Mohan to make his points about the whole, how he sees small arms, the indigenization of small arms, and the way ahead.
First of all, let me tell you, the small arms business is not a small business first. And then when you have to do this in the industry, it has to be economic. You should be able to sustain economically on a long-term basis. Unless until an industry you are able to sustain on an economic basis, it is very difficult to service the army or armed forces on a long-term basis. Whatever venture we are going in, this has to be profit generating, and it should be able to support that industry. Any industrialist may sink in some money initially, maybe for initial 2 years or 3 years. Thereafter, everybody who's there in the industry looks this as a business. And unless until as a business it is successful, it cannot survive. This reality we will have to accept. Now the second thing which I would like to mention, why are we in this state? Do we have any dearth of technology? Do we have any problem on technical capability? Do we have shortage of engineers? Do we have a shortage of scientists? My answer would be no. We have enough engineers, we have enough capability, we have enough infrastructure in under MOD as well as in DRD. Now you look at the acquisition of Indian Army. See, they have been looking for an assault rifle, and then the thinking was that they will continue with 5.56 45 weapon. And that is why under the guidance of Indian Army, we were developing, the ordnance factories were developing 5.56 45 weapon, the INSAS caliber weapon, and it was a monoblock receiver kind of a weapon. And with while your INSAS weapon is not an automatic rifle, and INSAS 1C, what was popularly being called, it was an automatic weapon, and it had met all the criteria of reliability, maintainability, accuracy. And the weapon, when it was last tried out, was almost accepted by the trial team, and they said that this weapon can be inducted into Indian Army. So this shows that we have the capability. One part is your economics, another part is your technical capability. Now, where have we really gone wrong? What has gone wrong? Why the army have to import? I would say that it is a more of a system failure. Unless until all the stakeholders, the user, manufacturer, designer, all put together, unless until they work in a unison manner, in a synergetical manner, it is difficult to produce a weapon and produce a weapon in bulk. See, when army came out with their philosophy that they don't want 5.56 45, they want 7.6 to 51 weapon. Again, in the leadership of DG Infantry, there was a project monitoring team made, and then the ordnance factories started working on 7.6 to 51 weapon. Within 6 months, they could come out with a prototype with meeting most of the GSQR requirements. And that weapon, by now, it has come into an excellent shape. That weapon has been tried out by the team of officers from MHA, and they have accepted that weapon. And Home Secretary has written to all the forces that this weapon you can consider, especially for long-range purposes. And that work is going on. Why I am saying all this, that there is a technical capability in the country. Now, this capability is not only in ordnance factories, it is in the ecosystem. Ordnance factories, when we are making this weapon, maybe 40 to 50% of the components, or you can say 40% or 50% of the share of the weapon making, they are outsourcing. Like many of the plastic parts we outsource, many of the springs we outsource, many components we outsource, the metal injection molding parts, which are one of the integral part of these weapons, that also we are dependent on private industry, our Indian industry, and our Indian industry is exporting the small arms parts, especially the metal injection molded parts. They are already being exported. So country has full-fledged technical capability to service any requirement of our armed forces. This is my belief. And if there is any gap, that gap can be filled up within 6 months or within 1 year. I do not know whether any technology which is not available in the country. The barrel making, cold swedging capability is available, and all kind of CNC machines are available either in public sector or in private sector. So there is nothing which we cannot make. I have been to the most modern plant of Russia, that is Izhbask, the Kalashnikov rifle plant, and I have spent almost 5 days in that plant, and I have gone from one corner to another corner. Let me share with you that whatever facilities they are having, there is nothing which we do not have or which we cannot acquire quickly. The Russians themselves, while talking on AK-03 subject, they have confirmed ample number of times that the weapons what Russians are making at Kalashnikov factory, everything is producible in this country. So then, where have we gone wrong? I would say maybe a little absence of synergy. Users expect certain things from the producer expects something from the user, and we keep on expecting from each other, and the meeting grounds had not been many. My submission to the forum that we have no dearth of technical capability. We have to come out with a business model which can sustain in the long run, and there has to be a perfect synergy between the user and the producer and the designer. We can come out with a solution.
Solar, making India self-reliant in ammunition.
Now, I want to ask General Kulkarni one question. Based on what Vivek and Mr. Hari Mohan have raised, there's a common thread in what both of them said. The fact is that the need for synergy between the users and the producers, and also the fact that this big bang approach of 500,000 weapons, or 300,000, 700,000 weapons should be replaced by a small bang approach, as Vivek said. So why is it that the army doesn't believe in this concept of a Mark 1, which you kind of, with successive iterations, you can go on improving, and thereby improve and create a weapon, or indeed a family of weapon systems?
Everyone has said whatever he had to say. At the end of it, probably somebody who's listening to us would say that if everybody is right, then where are things going wrong here? The user seems right in his own way, the manufacturer seems right in his own way, the designer seems right in his own way. We have the capacity, we have the capabilities, we have the will, we have the capital, we have the market, we have everything.
Yes, we are one of the world's largest small arms importers.
Yeah, we have everything. We are the 4th largest army, and we need it. Not that the very fact that we need it, we are importing also. Then why all this is happening? I think there is a mismatch. Where is the mismatch? Now, what is it? Now, I would go along with what you and Mr. Hari Mohan said, that we could go for small numbers, but that's not the approach that is generally being followed. After all, the army is a huge army. And imagine the inventory management. Supposing we were to get 5,000 weapons at any point of time, which is a very good thing. Now, what would this 5,000 go? To a particular brigade only? Or would you want them to go across the army, which is a few lakhs? a few 100,000, where would you want it to go like? It can't go everywhere. So the effect is, I would much like what had been suggested, which we were following also in the model of the JVPC, the order for 5,000 was given also. Now let's take the test case of the JVPC itself, because all of us are here who are aware and it's been in for such a long time. And 5,000 have been ordered that, yes, please supply 5,000 JVPCs and let's get on with it. As yet, I've retired almost 5 years back as DG Infantry here. So I know that this has been on since then, and we've been hand-holding this project to ensure that there is a success seen in this particular project or multi-mode grenade project. We wanted success because we are all as passionate, as Indianized as anybody else would be. No soldier, as I said at the very outset, is looking at a weapon or a ammunition coming from abroad. He much would like it to be his own, as long as it is reliable, as long as it is safe. Because safety is of paramount importance to anybody. One wouldn't want to lose a single man life. That is something which is not acceptable at all. Now, where is the thing? Why do we not be able to do what we are wanting to do? I think where the thing is, we are all government. And when we are all government, this is a big problem that comes up with. Now, who is the person who's a manufacturer? Say in this case, let's take only the ordnance factory. We'll keep Vivek out of it as yet, because Vivek hasn't yet started, getting involved with us in such a manner now, with the indigenization coming in, with privatization being allowed to come in, and now you'll find models of Vivek also succeeding in collaboration, because they bring in the technology, they bring in the art, they bring in the business models also, and they would want to succeed with the kind of business model. So it's a win-win situation for all. And the user is the beneficiary because he gets the best. That is the way I look at it. Now, let's take the case of any weapon that you wanted. Let's take what Mr. Haribon said, 7.16 to 51. We were able to produce it in 6 months' time. I remember Mr. Parikar having told them, they accepted the challenge. They didn't go along with it to make it in 6 months. The DG Infantry was made the PMG. He went along with it. And at the end of it, what happened? We have ended up importing a 7.62 to 51, not one, but a repeat order of the same one. What was the use of it? Now, if that means the perception is different, the reality is different, and what's happening on ground is probably nobody's aware of what is going on. In each one of them is working in their, in their own silos. I would have much liked at the very outset, whoever is the person controlling it. Now let's take in this particular case, is the MOD, which is responsible to ensure whether the weapon would be imported, yes or no. It is the MOD. However, little financial power may be given to each one of us, depending upon the rank and everything, and to the army commanders to import it, now the vice chief to import it, but that's a very limited number. The kind of amount and quantity required is large. So they can only import a small number. They could have imported a smaller number of snipers or a smaller number of things, but not a huge thing unless the MOD say. If the MOD or anybody for that matter sitting on top had to decide that yes, this is the weapon which will be manufactured in India, I am not, repeat, not going to be imported for whatever it be. Let's say, how would they not do it? They would do it. Everybody has to sit on the same table. They aren't sitting on the same table. I know for sure they aren't sitting on the same table, because nobody, again, as I said, it's government. In the government, moment you go hierarchical, manufacturing is not a hierarchical project. It could be a colonel competing with somebody or interacting with somebody who's far ahead in his pay scales or everything. But the man important is that colonel. He is the battalion commander. He is the man who wants the kind of weapon that it is. In between are all kinds of people who do sort of manufacturing at that level. The hierarchical difference is who is interacting with them. A lower level man. He's a lower level man who can interact, but is not a decision-making man. So whoever it is, it has to be a decision-making man who has to be interacting with it, who says, yes, it will be done like this. You tell them to change one spring, you will have the DGQA come in between. No, this cannot be done. There are hundreds of ways of when to do it and when how to introduce it. And after 6 months, you find the spring there is. The user gets very frustrated. That, well, I did last time say that this particular oil spills over to my eye. Why hasn't it stopped the very next day? That is what he's looking at. But the spillover will stop after almost 3-4 years. It would have lost its sheen. Now, where are the troops? The troops are moving from place A to place B to place C. That means from almost in an active to a non-active to some training or something. So he's again coming back to active after 5-6 years. He finds the same weapon. the same fault, the same this thing. So it's a huge this thing which requires a concerted effort.
So, Mr. Harimohan, I want to take off from where General Kulkarni mentioned this thing about sitting in a room or in a table, the need to work together. I mean, everything is there. All the capabilities are there. You have trained personnel. Everything is in the country. Then what is it that prevents all the stakeholders from actually sitting around a table? Is it the fact that there's no one to really bell the cat? What is the problem? Why can't all the stakeholders work together?
I'll give you a few examples when they were, do you know the story of Sumo vehicle? Sumo vehicle was developed by Tata. And it has been, repeatedly tried by the armed forces. And armed forces rejected that vehicle. And it was so nicely developed, it has come out as something like a cross-country vehicle. And Tata took a full advantage of it, and they have launched this in the civilian market. And no, I have seen some army officers saying, some armed forces officers saying, कि हमसे पूरा ट्रायल करवाया, हमसे पूरी मेहनत करवाई, हमसे गाड़ी डेवलप करवाई, और जो है देखिए पूरा उसमें से Tata is doing business. This is one example. The second example, JVPC, it has come to shape only because of effort of army. Effort of army means by demanding, give me this feature, give me this feature, give me this feature. And this is one of the unique weapon, 5.56, 30 caliber, nowhere in the world. This ammunition also got developed parallelly, and the biggest advantage, if this weapon goes to somebody else's hand, he will not get the ammunition because nobody else makes the ammunition, we only make this ammunition. And again, the advantage is being taken by the Chhattisgarh police. Chhattisgarh police is very happy with this weapon. They were the first customer to take it. And whatever General Kulkarni was telling, police role is different, I know. But the police which is fighting with the Naxals, their role is not limited. Their role is maybe slightly less than the army, but they are also fighting. Now, coming back to the problem of system failure or management failure. Again, I'll give you one data. Why more than 70% of RFPs of army doesn't fructify? Army issues, you can take out the statistics. So many RFPs are issued, 5 firms, 10 firms have participated, and ultimately maybe 20 to 25% only fructify. And they also fructify how many? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. There are cases which are there from 2009 onward, the cases are still on. 11 years. How do you expect any participant to hold the prices? So that is the scenario, and this is where we need to really have the correction. And I fully agree with the Kulkarni Sahab that we need to be together in a mission mode, and they have to be given a time-bound task. Here is the manufacturer, here is the designer, here is the user, and we are giving the best team of officers, and you are given a task within 6 months, achieve this much, within 9 months, achieve this much, and within 1 year, you achieve this much. That approach is really going to give results. Now, coming back to the points of Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and Mark 4. See, 84mm RL, recoilless rocket launcher. Armies started with Mark 1, then they took Mark 2, now they are holding Mark 3, Mark 4 is ready, and Mark 4 also they will take. See, when there is a graded approach, there can be a plan that Mark 1 will be phased out, or Mark 1 will be taken in a limited quantity. You take maybe 5% of your requirement, only allow Mark 1. Now you say you come out with Mark 2. You have to take a graded approach. See, if you want indigenously developed, which can support you throughout the life, you want the indigenous weapon, then you have to support the manufacturer or designer. If you want a perfect solution on day of induction, and then you want to live for 15, 20 years, that is also not right. See, there also you look for upgrades. Now, see, T-90, T-72 tanks, whatever are there with the Indian Army, when they are going for overall, they are getting upgraded. Whatever upgrades we could have realized during the life, those upgrades are getting added on the tanks. So similarly, you may not be able to source the spares from a foreign country. But then if the original manufacturer is in India, you can get the spares of Mark 1. You can get the spares of Mark 2. It is possible. See now Bofors, then you are having 400 guns. The Bofors spares you are not able to get from Bofors. The Bofors spares, Ordnance factories are giving. Whatever items, there are certain components which are common to Dhanush. Those spares are being given by Ordnance factories. So you have a big advantage if you have the manufacturer in the control of the country. And that advantage we should not forget, and that advantage we should encash. And I fully agree with Sanjay Kulkarni Saab. Whenever you are taking in a developmental work, do not involve the bureaucratic channels. Bureaucratic channels means do not involve army headquarters. Involve field army officers. Give the officers who have little technical acumen, and they have there are people who have, they will see the Dhanush gun. I am telling you, it has taken shape because of some of the army officers who were in mission mode. And during the success of Dhanush gun, we have invited those majors and brigadiers who have become now brigadiers and major generals. We have invited them at that point, and they say with lot of pride that they were instrumental in developing Dhanush. See, technical solution is very easy. Design and solution is very easy, but the user's perspective, meeting the user's requirement, that is most important.
Vivek, do you get a sense that we are actually driving, looking into the rearview mirror and not looking ahead, and we actually run the risk of falling behind the R&D advances that the rest of the world is making in small arms?
Whatever we've been trying to do all this while in terms of improvements is marginal improvements, right? And the world has moved far, far ahead. And I don't honestly believe that in terms of identifying those technologies and figuring out ways in which they can be part of our weapons, the ecosystem hasn't even got it anywhere close. And how is it that I can say that with complete assurance? Because of the fact that we integrate the design side, we integrate the manufacturing side, we integrate the quality side. So when we're able to put all of this together and have the manufacturing in country is when we realize that there will be certain areas where the age-old practices will work, and there are some areas where they will just fall apart. And what foreign countries are basically trying to do is, they've invested the last 20 years in trying to make certain things even better. Minor stuff like coatings, they've gone way, way ahead of us, right? The metallurgy, as much as Ordnance Factory can say that we have the best metallurgy, etc., all of that, I keep I keep going back to that same point. If that was to be the case and you had the best designers and all of that stuff, why is it we're still trying to push forward the insets until a few years back? And why is it that today we've got to buy something which is an AK clone and not even the most advanced AK clone? Let's be honest about this. That's the truth. I'm not stating anything which is a surprise. It is a fact. So the reason why we kind of in this position is because of mistakes which have happened in the past. Face it. The reason why we should not be in this position 5 years from now are amply clear. The most important thing that we need to do right now is this. Identify pockets of innovation, right? Those pockets of innovation are not in the public sector, and I'll tell you why. There's a very nice quote from a very good book by Malcolm Gladwell, and he says, the reason why in the biblical theater, when we're talking about David and Goliath, the reason why Saul was not confident about David's ability to beat Goliath was because he was imagining power in terms of physical capabilities, right? What he failed to understand was that you can actually find a way to make up for those physical capabilities by breaking the rules, by being agile and fast, and by thinking out of the box, right? If you want to replace the same ecosystems as they were there over the course of the past 30 years, and you want to try and, experiment with the same thing over and over again and try and push that forward for the next 20 years, I'm sorry, we're going to be in the same spot 20 years from now, right? What the private industry and firms like us, and I hope many other firms in the future as well, will try and do is they will try and break the rules. They will try and come up with products which are going to, bring forth the advantages which have already been tried and tested by foreign militaries, right? And they're going to think asymmetrically. They're not going to think linear. I'm telling you very clearly, the ability today that we have to do in-country design, development, and manufacturing is far better than what it was 4 years back. And 4 years back, when we started off, we imagined that it would take us 20 years to get there. All it took was thinking out of the box. It did not require us to have the mindset that physical strength determined success. You had to break the rules, we broke the rules, and that's why we are here. And the only reason why I believe that this is likely to succeed in the future is because of the fact that we right now at crossroads. Either we decide to upgrade or we decide to stay in the same situation as where we are and keep buying foreign stuff, right? That crossroad is very clear. You either can manufacture in India or you can basically import. If you want to import, that's a personal choice, but you're not going to be anywhere in the course of the next 10 years. That's absolutely clear to me as well. So the army is in a situation where, like Kulkarni said, there is no alternative but to sit down with the people who are best positioned to deliver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hari Mohan. And with that, we come to the end of a very, very exciting discussion. And I think the big point here is that when you come to Atmanirbhar in small arms, as all our panelists have just said, that the answers lie within. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you for your time. With that, we come to the end of the first India Today Defence Conclave. We would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Darwin Platform Group of Companies, and our associate sponsors, Navantia and Solar Group, for helping us organize this event. We hope these discussions were as enlightening for you as they were for us. Remember, national security is vital for our economic and social progress, and the India Today Defence Conclave will give you clarity on this very vital sector. Thanks for watching.